Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Super excited to have you all here. Today, we're going to be talking about how Shiftfillers grew 250% by optimizing their tech stack. A couple of housekeeping items before we jump in. One, if you have questions throughout the webinar, drop them into chat. Sometimes people wait till the end of the webinar. We're going to be answering these in real time. So we'd like this to be a dialogue, like it to be conversational. So ask any questions that you might have. Also, if you happen to miss something, or if you're thinking, oh man, I want that slide, we are going to be sharing a recording of this with you. So you'll be able to share that with your team and watch it after this as well. And then lastly, the real goal here today is to share insights on how Shiftfillers grew 250%, but really so that you can learn best practices around your tech stack and gain insights and actionable insights that you can use to grow your agency faster. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in and do some introductions. I'm David Falwell, president and founder of Staffing Referrals. Been in the staffing industry for about 12 years. Used to have a digital inbound agency, was doing marketing for agencies like some of you on this call. When I realized that referrals was a huge opportunity for growth for staffing agencies, and launched Staffing Referrals going on 6.5 years now. So I'm excited to be here with all of you. Rachel, let me pass off to you for the next introduction.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I'm Rachel Arnold, VP of Customer Experience here at Staffing Referrals. I've been with the team for almost 2 years, but prior to coming over, I came out of healthcare staffing and I was a customer of Staffing Referrals. We had a ton of success with the product from a non-integrated perspective, and I kind of just loved it, had a lot of passion for it, and was helping the team at Staffing Referrals to make it even better. And now here I am on this side of things. So I oversee all of our accounts, including Shiftfillers. So I'm excited to be here, and I'll pass it to Joda.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, my name is Joda Perry, Vice President of Enterprise Solutions at Avionte and WorkN. I've been in the staffing industry for the last 7 years, 5 of it which were with WorkN as we launched our new company. And a new mobile strategy in the industry. And then in the last 2 years, I've been with Avionte, who acquired us in 2021. Really excited about my current role, which is to build out the enterprise business team at Avionte. We've got incredible talent, and there's been some remarkable changes to the organization over the last 18 months. And some of which, we're fully hosted in AWS, which gives us that 99% uptime assurance. We're SOC 2 compliant for those of you heavily focused on security, which I think everybody should be. And really I do a lot of collaboration across departments to ensure, we've got a first-in-class enterprise implementation and support team. Dan.
Yeah, I'm Dan Mastropolo. I'm the current Chief Vision Officer for Shiftfillers. And a little bit about me, I've spent a little over the last decade in staffing. I started with a top 3 enterprise group and was one of their top VPs. And then, over the last 4 years, I've started multiple startups, specifically in the light industrial space, and have been an original member of the founding group for Shiftfillers since day one. And really, a lot of my life, I've given a lot of time and effort and energy into really focusing on technology and learning how to work with it to really continue to be innovative and driving the industry forward. And that's really what our original group was founded for. So it's been a lot of fun working with all of you guys pretty much since day one. And I'm really excited to share with everybody a lot of our story today.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Super excited to be here with all of you and to jump into this. Before we get into the webinar content, one of the questions that we asked all of you as you were registering for this webinar was, what are your top priorities today? Pretty interesting to see what came back. One was that all of the priorities were important to some of you, more so than even I might have thought. And the top 3 priorities were increasing recruiter productivity, automating manual processes, and finding qualified candidates. The reason I bring this up is a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, the mobile app, the referral management, some of the software technology, the solutions that we're going to be talking about can help you help you with your priorities and challenges today. So as all of you know, we now live in the most digitally connected time in history. And what this means for you as a staffing agency is that expectations are really changing. Today, 76% of consumers prefer when brands offer their own mobile apps. We're going to be talking a lot about how you can leverage a mobile app for your agency, but it's I think an important stat to keep top of mind. Additionally, the talent expectations have changed a ton. Your candidates expect everything to be digital. And we did a survey through Staffing Referrals and found that 70% of candidates are more likely to refer at your agency if you have a digital referral program in place, which means if you do not have a digital referral program, you are missing referrals every day. So zooming out a little bit, when we look at the fastest growing agencies, what we found is that they are using technology to get ahead, and that 60% of the fastest growing staffing agencies are more likely to, 60% are more likely to be early adopters, 59% are more likely to say technology creates a competitive advantage, and they are 88% more likely to use referral management software. On the flip side of that, agencies that are not embracing the digital transformation, that are not adapting, risk failure. What I think can be expected is that there could be a gradual decline in operational efficiency, candidate quality, and overall market position. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. We'll give you a quick overview on the companies, and then we'll jump into the meat of the presentation and talk about how Shiftfillers did what they did. So Dan, why don't you tell us a little bit about who is Shiftfillers?
Yeah, absolutely. So Shiftfillers basically started as a staffing agency, primarily to the light industrial sector, really supporting the MSP. So we basically really came to market as wanting to be an agency to help basically the MSP light industrial market really get better processes to speed up fulfillment, and really using the technology aspects, to drive that. So we brought together originally a group of tech pioneers and industry experts, that were specific to that space, and set us up basically to be a hyper growth company. So we've been one of the fastest growing LI companies since inception. And really from day one, we came to market basically going, we're not going to have brick and mortar. We were going to focus on the vendor on-premise model. And without the brick and mortar presence, the tech was really the highlight of that, mindset, and really has set us up to, the better ability to scale, which was the exact intent when we came and started. So this group that you see here is really a bunch of our original partners, and continued today in the business. And all of us had really dedicated most of our life in staffing to the LI space. So that's really how we started, and the growth's been phenomenal.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And Joda, why don't you tell us a little bit about Avionte? Oh, you're on mute.
Figure that out one of these days. Yeah. So what I was saying is I'm sure many on the call today are familiar with who Avionte is, but we take a lot of pride in really being the most robust end-to-end platform in the industry, covering everything from CRM to ATS to back office payroll, our insights, business intelligence tools, new APIs, and we've got an Avionte Plus marketplace that's always, of course, expanding. And of course, we've got the mobile app, which is what we call 24/7 or WorkN. It's literally the same product. It's 24/7 is Avionte's term for how they want to brand it. We are also really excited to launch some new products, including our new onboarding solutions that will be accessible through the mobile app. We're launching Pixel, which is going to be a chatbot and an engagement platform with some AI sprinkled into that, which we're using internally today to do some of our hires, which is pretty cool. But all of our development today is really focused on cross-platform from really bold to back office to the mobile app.
Awesome.
Yeah, and when we talk about owning your talent experience, really what that boils down to is what we would call talent enablement, or otherwise we've called it in the past the total candidate experience. But it's really about how we integrate our customers' current tech partners into their mobile app for a centralized experience. So as David shared, previous slides, it's a mobile first world, and talent and customers are, the expectations are changing. They expect mobile apps today. But also some are looking at it and they call it the Amazon effect. And it's really where everyone wants to deliver a simple and easy to use experience to their customers. So in this case, what we've done is we've taken staffing referrals and we have seamlessly integrated it into the Shiftfillers app. And when talent engages with it, they actually don't even realize that they're engaging with a third-party tool because it's so seamless. And we've done the same in the platform for onboarding and for pay stubs, third-party timekeeping, if you don't want to use our native timekeeping, and Sense as well. So, but yeah, it's been really successful. It's really about driving a seamless experience for the talent.
Absolutely. And just real quick on staffing referrals, for those of you that don't know us, we're the largest provider of referral software to the staffing industry. We've helped create 1.5 million brand ambassadors for agencies across all verticals, have had a ton of success in the light industrial space, IT, healthcare, and really anywhere where you can incentivize and make it easy to get a referral. We found that it will influence and drive more referral placements for you. We are award-winning staffing agency, or it's not staffing, software designed specifically for staffing agencies. A few of our integrations, you'll see that we integrate across the board with most major ATSs. Today, we're going to be talking very specifically about our incredible partnership and integration with Avionte, as well as our integration and partnership with WorkN. So with that, let's jump into the meat of the presentation. Dan, if you could just tell us a little bit, I know you talked about who Shiftfillers is, but tell us a little bit about your journey over the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. So we came together as a team really right at the start of the pandemic. And from basically April of 2020 to April 2021, we were really solely focused on the actual solution and delivering tech to market that we knew we needed to really drive home our mission, which once again was to stay out of the brick and mortar space and really focus vendor on premise. And we knew early on, because of the experts that were involved, that meant we needed to have a really good mobile experience and an even better tech stack. So we really, when it came down to our partners, it came down to really using the people that were best in breed in specific things that we were trying to manage day in, day out, that most of us in the space are just navigating. So we launched officially April 2021, where we were client facing. And in our first year, that growth was over 4,600%. We basically went from startup to basically 14 million in our first year, basically in when we started client facing. From there, in 2022, we continued to enhance products, looked at a lot of analytics. We really used tools like our BIs and that data driven to be able to really continue to enhance our delivery, and also landed some really big enterprise clients. So over the last year past that, we grew another 250%. And just this past month in July, we actually had a shareholder purchase into Raise Group, which is really exciting for us. It's both organizations are really excited about the future, but really the piece of this was now taking this into the enterprise and continuing to drive forward. And so every piece of our partnerships, especially with the groups we're talking about today, played integral parts into the growth of that.
Awesome. That's great. And Dan, could you dig into a little bit? I know a lot of the people here today are kind of trying to understand what they should do with their tech stack, how it all fits together. I feel like you've had a good perspective and obviously some great results that tie back to that. Could you share a little bit about how you built your tech stack and how you see some of the key components?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously in light industrial staffing, right, it's very transactional, and our candidate base is, getting pretty much, multiplying across multiple agencies, just trying to get to work as fast as possible. So that really boiled down to us in focusing of key areas in our technology and the core, product base. One was obviously our TA and our recruiting initiatives to be able to drive volume. Since we do, work in a vendor on-premise capacity, there's weeks, we're trying to fill 400, 500 orders. And to do that, we need every bit of our recruiting methods to work. So, outside of our programmatic partners, staffing referrals was involved from day one. We knew we needed to be 100% all in on referrals and the automated referral management tool of that to really tie in, back to payroll and our referees, and also kind of gamify that really drove us into, that relationship. In addition to, WorkN was our go-to-market partner for basically our shifts and scheduling, and a lot of our integrations to third-party systems like time clocks and those types of things to really be able to manage the back office side of, the business, and make those a little bit easier. And so we worked through a lot of third-party integrations with those ancillary systems through the API and also the marketplace product side. And then in addition to that, right now comes communication. How do we communicate to the top of the funnel? Also, basically, how do we communicate to the active populations? And so we originally started managing some of that on our own, but the biggest issue was getting that into, activity reports and really trying to get data and analytics back on, how that time was spent. And so in January of this year of 23, we brought Sense into this equation to really seamlessly really bring that communication layer better into integrations to our core system, which is basically Avionte. And so Avionte for us, because of the fact that we manage so many things through VMS partners, it really is a lot of back office work for us. And we knew Avionte had, the best back office platform, in addition to obviously Bold, that gave us a lot of integrations with these other systems. But that's ultimately how we landed in this core group and have really gone all in on it from day one.
Absolutely. And these partners, why did you select these specific partners?
Yeah, once again, it's that best in breed. So we shop this basically against market, right? And we narrowed those down, but the reality is it just came back to being best in class, and Absolutely. We felt like this was exactly that group, and it's honestly panned out for us.
That's great. All right. So I think this is one of the more interesting things about your guys' strategy. I think it's a pretty cool story. And there's not a lot of companies that can say they grew as fast as you did without having the brick and mortar in place. You launched mobile first. Tell us a little bit about that journey, what that looked like.
Yeah, for us, the process was pretty easy. There was a lot of just out of the box, development that makes these things really simple to just start making it more your own experience. But at the end of the day, implementation and those types of things, were really easy. It was a partnership between both groups. But the reason I think that we launched as successfully is, there's sometimes this persona where, C-level gets asked to shop these things and make some decisions, and then operations, has to really drive the actual adoption. And if we have any type of disconnect between, that experience and what that is between both parties supporting that, it becomes really challenging to deliver, the adoption. In our group, we were all in, everybody supported it. And in that made these partnerships and the meetings of, actually designing this, having, also the feedback from your teams because of how many times you guys have, specialized in these areas, right? We were able to really work together, yin and yang between the partners, understand the strengths of the products, where we could use the API usage, to maybe work around product flaws. But that really then set us up to make sure we had good, good rollouts, good adoptions early. There is a little bit to be said also. We decided obviously to do this on the front end. So let's also be real. There's a difference in deploying this and it being the solution from day one versus trying to implement it in, maybe an existing environment. But I just want to say, if you're thinking about these, understanding what the market is asking for, what the candidates are asking for, and where you can really truly, catch the early wins of, automating manual processes today, right? There's ways to phase these in no matter what the situation to really, start moving into what, the market and our, populations are demanding.
That's awesome. And I also, some of you will notice it looks like quite a few have already taken it, but we did launch a poll on, does your agency use or plan to use a mobile app? Looks like we've got 16 responses right now. 11 of the 16 or 69% are saying that they do plan to use or plan to use a mobile app as of today, which is really great. Dan, one question I had as you were talking about that is, how quickly did you go nationwide? Well, at what point did you so the day was that one as well?
Yeah, we actually had to grow pretty quickly across the country. So like today we operate in 13 states. And like I said, most of that is vendor on premise. Within the first year, I want to say we went basically from 1 to probably 7, and then year 2 we went basically between 7 and 13, and then have kind of maintained 13 for the last couple of months. So it was pretty quick, but we also had really good insurance partners that allowed the growth quickly.
That's really great. That's awesome.
I just want to add, it's been great really watching these guys grow and jumping in when we can help out. I remember doing some presentations with some of the partners and your customers.
Tier 0, bro. I won't ever forget that story ever.
It's great. It's just a lot of fun. Congratulations to you and the team. That's pretty awesome stuff.
Thanks.
Awesome. So next we're going to talk just a little bit about how you integrated and automated the referral management component. You'll notice here on the right, we have just kind of a replay of what this looks like going into the app and showing you how seamless this experience is. Dan, could you just kind of share a little bit about this component of your candidate experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I've like I said, I've spent almost a little over a decade in the technology and staffing space. So what's always been fun for me is staying agnostic to these tools and just learning how and pushing the boundaries of where they could go. But when it comes to the referral process and also understanding the users, right? There's 3 personas that you really have to keep in mind, right? We have the end user, which in a lot of our cases is either the candidate or potentially an admin of a client or somebody that's interfacing, with the tools. And then you have basically your internal staff, right? And there are very different experiences dependent on that. But when we're talking about the candidate experience, especially in LI, they can't be lengthy processes. They can't be going to multiple systems. So understanding that for us, and once again, really truly putting referrals as a core piece and focus in the TA strategy, we pick this method where it's seamless. Like we have a page, you click on it, you can get to your ambassador page, you can see your hours from basically the people you've referred, know when you basically are owed your referral fee. And we have this basically in multiple processes, but through the app makes that candidate experience really seamless. The second thing is from just people visiting our website or just going through our applicant journeys, we push people into our referral process multiple times. The end of the day, we want them to know they can earn more money. We want more passive seekers, right? And at the end of the day, we're willing to pay them for that network. And this makes it so easy for them to be able to do it.
And Joda, I think Dan talked about this a little bit, but the whole concept of on-demand staffing here, could you just elaborate a little bit on how this empowers that?
Yeah. So, first off, online staffing, really, what is it? It's connecting, two-sided marketplace, or really connecting your talent through this new form, this digital means through the mobile app. Some call it Uberizing. So it's about matching, your talent to a job based off of their skill set, based off of their geolocation, and based off of their availability. And so if you got really good data, you can do an amazing job of matching your talent to those jobs. When that talent receives that opportunity, it should be highly qualified for them. So that's sort of the premise of the online staffing piece. And then ultimately it evolved into where we're at today. When I talked about the total candidate experience, it's like, well, gosh, what are the other experiences that we can bring talent inside of that app above and beyond just the online staffing piece? And that's really where it came in to really fold those tech partners into that app to create a centralized experience. And it's really cool. Like there's a pretty good story. One of our customers early on, they were having a lot of success with online staffing. They dropped in pay stubs which was really cool. It got a lot of attention. And they promoted, of course, all of that to their talent. But then they launched staffing referrals, and they didn't promote that. And they just dropped it into the app it was like a month, and they didn't even talk about it. And it just organically got picked up by the talent where they saw it. And then they were just starting to refer out, these new candidates. And it became one of their top two most important ways of recruiting new talent to their organization, it was pretty cool, even without even announcing a referral program.
Yeah, that was a cool moment.
Legs of its own.
Yeah, normally it's the email and text that kind of gets it moving, and seeing the action that we got in that instance just from adding it to the app was really amazing. And the thing I always think about is, referrals, kind of the historical or the analog way of doing referrals relies on a conversation. So the only points that you have to get those referrals are typically when you're asking that person for a referral, or maybe you have a form on your website. But this allows a referral can happen at any point that they're in the app and they go to check their menu. They're going to see a refer a friend button. If maybe they just talked to somebody that was looking for a job 30 minutes before that, and they're on their app, and like, oh, I can refer a friend, earn money right now. So it's really being top of mind always, and making sure that they always have the ability to do that, not just at the one moment when they're talking to your recruiter, which I think can be really powerful. And that story that you just told kind of highlights that exactly.
Dave, I got another one that absolutely is totally coincidence. It came up this morning. Received notice last night from a friend of mine that they lost their job. They were out of work. And so that was just in the back of mind. And I'm like, gosh, I know a couple of staffing companies. Maybe I can introduce them. I don't know, how else to help this person. So anyways, this morning, 7 o'clock, I'm going through LinkedIn as I typically do, just checking things out. And I came across one of your customers who was just promoting their business. And I recognized, and I knew that they were more professional staffing. And so I just clicked on the link. I had no idea it was going to launch staffing referrals, but sure enough, it did. And I referred them out this morning, and I was like, I feel so good about it. And anyways, we'll see what happens, but it was pretty cool.
Well, I hope you get a bonus.
And it was super easy.
I hope you get it.
And there was a $250 bonus sitting at
there
the
you
end.
go. There you go. Were they using dual-sided? They giving the applicant one too?
Yeah, it was $50 for that.
Oh, that's great. And also, I just saw a question just came in. What happens with the talent who are referred through the app? How does the recruiter know they were referred so they're triggered to take action? Rachel, you want to?
Here I am again. Yeah, that's a great question. So, and Danny, it looks like you just raised your hand. What happens with staffing referrals? Whenever somebody does come in, the recruiter is notified in real time. And the beautiful thing about the integration is once they get that notification email letting them know that somebody just came through, it tells them who it came from. But when they get that email, they can go straight to Avionte and just start doing their thing, because that person will already be in there by the time they get that notification. So they can act really fast. It's like the alert, right? I get this email and I'm like, oh, I need to go do something. And then I go to Avionte and I just go through my process. But if the person was referred and we are missing some critical information to get them in Avionte, we do have a pre-qualification automation that will pick up too. So in that case, that would happen behind the scenes, and then the person would then opt in, fill out their information, and then the recruiter would be notified. That was a really good question.
I think the coolest part is just the transparency for the talent, right? I'm not sure if we're going to talk about this, but the transparency is key, right? Like if I'm going to refer somebody and I want to get credit for it, like how do I track that? And when they start, how do I know that they've started, right? And you guys have really figured that out and closed the loop. And I think that's one of the greatest parts about your platform is really the talent that is doing the referring knows where they stand with that person that, that they just referred. That's pretty awesome.
I mean, just on that note, I mean, the part of the reason that we built this was that we'd heard stories from, it was actually in travel nursing is where we kind of started validating this idea. And at TravCon had heard story after story of people being like, I used to refer my friend to this agency, and I found out that my friend worked there. 6 months later, I reached out to get my bonus, and they're like, we don't have a record of that. Recruiter wasn't there. And all of a sudden and they're like, now I'm never referring to that agency again. I hate that company. And you can literally, your referral program can actually be a detriment if you're not handling it with care and providing transparency throughout the process. So it's something that, if you're not careful about it and referrals are getting missed or payouts are getting missed, it could actually hurt your reputation, hurt your NPS, which obviously can have a big impact on things.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go and jump into the results. We've talked a lot about Dan's growth, but I think there's a couple other notes here that are worth jumping into. This one, I had actually never heard of anybody talking about fill rates the way you did. Why don't you share what does it mean to have 100+% fill rate?
Yeah, absolutely. So because, like I said, we're dealing mostly high volume, right? Like there's enough analytics in the industry to really anticipate turnover, no-show rates, things of that nature. So, we've been really fortunate with our client partners that they basically let us overfill with the knowledge. And so we always use some ratios, to really drive what that means from a recruiting percentage, that basically need to be booked into orientations to net out basically, 100% fill rate, right? So we've had multiple weeks over the last 2 years where we've been actually able to achieve 110, 125% fill rates, both because the client allows us to do it, and then also just having it in our strategy. And like I said, we're using multiple recruiting methods just like anybody else. When you're dealing with that type of volume, you have to, but that's really how we've gotten it done, just using every tool under the sun to drive the volume, and especially to deliver for some of these bigger orders that we've been asked to take on.
And so just to be clear, so when you first said this, I was like, how can you possibly have over 100% fill rate? But 100 jobs are open, you're getting 110 people there, knowing that 10 might not show up. Is that the thought process?
That's exactly right. Right.
Yeah.
If I have 100 orders, like typically, we know we have typically a 30 to 40% no-show rate, right? So you take that on top of those orders to really try to net the candidate populations, right? So, that's exactly the methods that we used. And then, but once again, I don't know many people that can say they've hit, 100%. And I think if anybody, knows the value of that, right? We all know that that's our money. That's how we drive our revenue. That's how we drive our reputation. But at the end of the day, like, these pieces have been instrumental in us actually being able to deliver it. It's a combination of that attraction, right? But also the engagement, throughout that candidate journey, to ensure that they are clear in the directions, right? Where how to get to orientation, what to expect. This entire stack has really given us the ability to build that out.
That's great. And then on the referral front, this was a stat when you shared this with me, I was obviously super excited. Could you elaborate a little bit here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, we were really staffing referrals has been part of our stack since day one. And, over time, right, you learn different lessons. So our first year that we launched, we really came into candidate marketplaces with no reputation, and it takes a little bit of time, to get the following. But we've really organically grown our candidate base since day one. We weren't established. We didn't pay for lists. So that's all come from, job board advertisements, grassroots, and then these types of systems. So in year one, we basically picked up just shy of about 200 referrals, which, is okay. It definitely was part of our piece, but really year two, once we started getting the bigger candidate populations, got a lot of this marketing and those communication pieces. And also, the improvement between the staffing and referrals and the Avionte integrations, it really streamlined a lot of processes. So, we were always using the API bluntly, to work and get communication layers in, outbound messaging, update job templates, when there are job advertisements on, weekends for, hot jobs, things like that. But, just in 2023 alone, we really built out more automations where we're introducing our referral program even at the point of entry of an applicant, to our system. So, they get a little pre-screen. If they answer no to some questions on pre-qualifying, we still give them an ability to become an ambassador and earn money through our referral program, even if they can't, are not qualified for a job. In addition to, though, once they're actually on assignment, right now we're in the in-app experience, they're at the site, and now they're, also learning more about what, to really expect in that job. That's where the confidence starts coming up. That's where we start seeing, these more gamified aspects where, we have leaders in the community and they may get into like buddy game, right? I want to see who can earn the most money. I want to see if I can, dominate the referral fee. Well, all of those things over time now has netted us this result right here, where, we're seeing over 430% growth from prior year. We're only halfway through the year. We're actually on place to, be in almost over 1,000 referrals since we've made some, additions to this workflow. But our processing is getting better, like we're even at a point, because now that there's the referral section in the new Avionte side, to really see those ambassadors, the referees in the system, like we can take referrals from the desk. We can do other things, outside of just the automated piece. But, that's been really instrumental for us to continue to see the growth, and then obviously our candidate populations are growing by the day. So it's having a more downstream impact, even to the point where, we have actually a dedicated recruiter at this point, that's only working referrals for us on a daily basis.
That's really amazing. I think that's kind of a testament to the idea of turning your talent pool into a competitive advantage, where you're basically saying, hey, we've got this huge network, how do we leverage it? Which ultimately, and we hear this from people like you and other customers as well, is that it's helping you find qualified candidates that you may not have found on a job board, and ultimately, hopefully reducing some of the dependency that you might have on job boards. So you start to broaden your sourcing strategy, which is really great.
Yep, absolutely.
So go ahead, Rachel.
There was a question that came through before we get any further back, and Dan, this one is
this one's going to you, Dan.
Yeah. With high volume orders, how are you entering your job orders in Avionte so you can accurately see fill rate? We see evergreen orders that are super tricky to get accurate metrics for.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So right now, the way that we do that is we actually post what we call post-only jobs, which essentially is tied to our programmatic spends and our, like third-party job board world. Then we basically open up, our regular orders. Typically for us, in the high volume side, we have a lot of clients that are giving us like 3 weeks worth of orders. So we tend to open the orders based on that 3-week history, and then really drive, our submissions from basically the postings that are coming in to nominations against those orders, which has gotten us a lot better on the analytic of, actually who's being nominated to the job, how long they're staying in specific stages of that job, and then, ultimately what we're converting into the placement piece. The other thing I will say that has been really instrumental for us this year is honestly the addition of insights. Insights for us really gave us the ability to see more a visualization of the data that's happening within the system, which once again comes down a lot to the recruiter activity, pipeline stages, starts versus placements, without us having to really aggregate the data as much as we are. The one thing I will say is, once again, we definitely have a technical team, that maybe some agencies don't have, that, we also do a lot of stuff through our own internal analytics. And then also we're a heavy user of the API of all of these systems. So, we do a lot of stuff where we're calling specific event triggers, which, are basically placement records, certain things in the recruiting processes. And, have gotten really creative at how we're using notifications to certain compliance teams, recruiting teams, and measuring things in real-time events versus being just dependent on the reports themselves. But once again, that's all available through every partner, that we're talking about today. So that's a lot of how we've, gotten really creative with it.
And we actually got a follow-up to that. So
Yeah.
You're just a little bit deeper, but are you cloning your regular orders every 3 weeks?
Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. We don't always get the same orders on the same shifts, but between the clone order piece, we also use a lot of managed templates. Like, so if we're not cloning them, we're typically opening a new order and then using a template that's basically, already hard coded with most of the information that we need to speed those processes up.
That's great. And then I think one of the areas that I think would be valuable for the audience today is just talking a little bit about how did you go about launching your tech stack? Like what were some of the steps that you took? What were some of the things that you did differently? I talk to people every day that are, it seems like everybody's trying to figure out what to implement, how to implement it, when to implement it. And you've done a lot of it. So could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm going to gather from that question overall is like everybody wants to know a little bit of the secret sauce, right?
Yeah.
But you're really just be as transparent as I can, in at least in my experience of what we went through from Shiftfillers perspective, right? Like we started off obviously with a journey, right, or a web diagram and workflow diagram of key processes that we knew historically were very manual at 9 out of 10 times, right? And we really focused basically our key workflows and also like the third-party integrations to basically set up like early wins, because you need your team, especially on the operational forefront, to buy in early, just as much as, like I said earlier, the executive team that's looking at this really specifically for, investment purposes, but we then now expect a return on that within a certain period of time, right? And then the habit is if we don't see the return, then we tend to just start to eliminate. But in our world, when we knew these things were going to get better with time, because the more analytics that we were able to really see and deliver could make those strategic, enhancements over time. So, really for us, the way we basically launched this was we set the parameters with basically implementation teams on your side, also basically, like steering committees, which really were the SMEs in key areas of these the purposes of what we were putting together, and then really work together hand in hand through that early setup time, and also had kind of a shared project timeline of how and when we were going to bring those to market. By doing that, then it got into a lot of one-on-one meetings, a lot of shared like Slack channels with different, development groups, but also, those implementation specialists to really keep us in a 24/7 environment of communications, but not necessarily, having to rely on hour, 2-hour calls. From there, I was very blessed. I had, some really big, people involved, like Rod Smith, obviously is like a genius in our world, a former founder of TempBuddy, Drew Golan, which was the original partner, had launched a mobile first strategy in the apartment industry. And then we had, some early Uber adopters and tech people. So, we cheated a little bit with that code base of all of our heads coming together. But at the end of the day, between that and our operational groups, right, we then really dev'd out, used the dev environments to make sure things were, accepted by operation before just flipping a switch and then going live with it. And that really pans out a lot when the processes work, when people are involved and feel like they're getting the training, where they see the operational efficiencies that it has the impacts on, right? That's really bringing these two teams together collaboratively, which then help deploy it. So, once again, we did a really good job. I think really we started betaing within, 4 months of our creation, mostly internal teams. Like I remember having COVID and I say, hey, set me up on a work location, like let me see the schedule, but like, once again, when you take the time to see what that experience is from both agency, user, client, you can make a lot of really good decisions early, and then also have them involved where they can adopt quickly.
And it sounds like you did a really good job of like getting the alignment, the buy-in, the adoption. Any best practices, steps that you took specifically related to making sure everybody was on the same page? It sounds like the journey mapping was a component of that, but anything else you'd like to dig into?
Yeah, no. So we actually used a management company for that called Rhythm Systems, which is a very good, executive planning and strategy, kind of independent company. They're based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Drew had worked with them previously. I came from a scaling up background, but the methodologies are very similar in how they approach that. But, really from day one, we bought into that strategy planning platform, had independent coaches. We all had certain things we owned. They helped keep us on track. And then the executive group, once again, was really collaborative through that in our first year. And, once again, those platforms are known for hyper growth companies. So it really panned a lot for us early on.
That's great. And how did you decide what to keep manual versus automated? Did you prioritize? It sounded like you mapped that out. Is there any specific?
I think if I boil it down to a couple of key things, I think, some of it was, either automation or, limitations to API or code base, to be honest. Other things were, we just weren't comfortable moving it 100% digitally and wanted to keep some manual processes in place to make sure we had the key sets of data moving through the ecosystem and we could get it from front to back office the way we needed it before we triggered and, then went to automation. Me personally, just from the technical side of me, I'm really big into using CSVs, flat files, early on to make sure all the data points are being collected and that you can get done in time, the things that really need to move. But that really does then transition into the groundwork of how we build the API, right? Most of this is the stuff coming over in script. Most of this comes back to, any of the API modules that can be used, outside of just marketplace, integrations. And, once again, we definitely are in a hybrid world of where we do a combination of both for internal reasons and external reasons, and also to just also keep pioneering things that we want to do that may not be possible today.
I feel like you pushed the boundaries on that. I feel like you're building integrations before they existed.
I can tell you, if I had $1 for every time a third-party partner said you're the only person that uses that, I'd be retired by now. But it's fun.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and jump into the when it comes to your referral program, specific details around this. Questions we get all the time. Every single person we talk to, somebody during the demo, is what should the bonuses be? How do you structure it? How do you lay that out to drive success? You clearly are having success with it. Would you mind just talking through kind of how you've laid everything out?
Yeah. So a lot of us had run referral programs in the past, right? So we had a little bit of knowledge of things that had worked in past lives and things of that nature. But for the main methodology that we use, right, is looking at what is really the length of time that you break even on a placement, right? For us in light industrial, it tends to basically be somewhere between that second and third week of assignment, right? So for us, we are okay losing early on, but ultimately this is basically that break even, that 2-week timeline. So if we can keep somebody on assignment for 80 hours, we're basically breaking even on those 2 weeks from a profitability perspective. And at the end of the day, this has absolutely been proven where our referral candidates tend to have a longer longevity because their friend or family told them, this is what the job is. This is what the culture is. This is why I like working here, right? It's not a cold candidate that we're pre-screening and then just saying, oh yeah, from a, like a manual, screening saying, okay, now I think this person can work there, right? So for us, we tend to see, almost a 2-time longer tenure from a referrer than a non-referred candidate. The second thing was really this dual-sided candidate, right? A lot of referral programs, people tend to pay the referrer, but not necessarily the referee. But when you do the dual-sided thing for us, there's a psychology that I now know that not only did I refer you, but now you can actually make money. So now between the two people in this equation, it's a 2-sided part of accountability. So I don't want my reputation as the referrer to go downstream if you don't, hold your end of the bargain. And at the end of the day, I don't get paid, you don't get paid. So let's work together to do that. So, some of those things have definitely driven, but we took that dual-sided approach, also to be a little bit unique and kind of use that as a method to see if we could drive a little bit higher volume as well.
Absolutely. And I also think some of the unique things that you do are a little bit unique that are maybe not as standard as what we see with other customers and would be worth people that are on the in the audience listening to or hearing about. So you're inviting every applicant comes in, you're going broad net, which is working well for you. And I also think that you had mentioned this in conversation that you've also added our link in multiple places throughout Sense journeys so that you're, I think, even in the chat bot. So you're basically saying, all right, like, let's get people to this ambassador dashboard throughout a series of places and try to drive back to it so that we can capture as many referrals as possible, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Like, I mean, it's even to the point where if you go to our jobs page on our website, like we have a section for referral, even on just the raw job. So somebody can apply, on an Indeed quick apply or through our website quickly, but they can also refer right off the bat. Our workflow through, some of the other things that you mentioned, like we bring everybody in basically either as a web applicant or a staffing referral tag, depending on if it's coming through just the direct, site through the ambassador pages, or if it's coming through that, one of those other journeys. But at the end of the day, those single points of entry make it easier to then drive those secondary communications. So, basically, one of the things we do is as soon as they come in, we ask a couple quick pre-screening questions that are, yes, no. Some of the no's basically drive down to a point that say, hey, unfortunately, this is a main criteria to work with us. However, would you like to sign up for our ambassador page and still be able to make, extra income by just referring friends and family? And those other ones that even have the yes scenarios, which go as far as automatic bookings to our recruiting and funnel teams, right? Like they also get basically a follow-up message to say, hey, now that you're scheduled with the recruiter, go ahead and check out our ambassador page. You can also earn money, to, refer friends and family. In addition to that, though, let's go post job, right? We have additional automations that go out with like kind of a jobs of the week or open positions, that tend to go more on a weekly timer. But that once again drives and keeps making sure our referral network knows the jobs that we have open in real time. And then, we've gotten really creative also of just how we are alerting our recruiting teams of these referrals outside of just the generic standard emails. We bring a lot of that back in through Slack channels, and where people have a direct Avionte URL in those messages that they can just go straight to a candidate profile, not even have to worry about working in outside systems, and share the responsibility. But like I said, we've grown so much in this referral piece that we're down to a sole recruiter that's doing, this all day, every day, just because of the daily volume.
That's great. And we had another question that came in. With all the points in the candidate life cycle that you're inviting the candidate to refer a friend, which 2 points have seen the highest volume of referrals?
Definitely our initial applicant journey, and just the direct ambassador pieces that are baked into the app, like that are coming directly through our campaigns. Once again, because we don't have, like, it's different in the sense for us that, traditional agency has a branch, they have 90 different clients, and, they may be running campaigns or different methods of how those jobs come into this. We're basically managing a single community for a large volume. And for us, it really does create more of those communities within our campaigns. So, that targeted messaging and basically just reiterating those jobs for us, that keeps the engagement really high just through our app or through the actual, staffing referral page directly too.
And I would just add to that is that in terms of what we see as best practices is always invite everybody that's placed, potentially interviewed, if you want to go broader on the applicant. And then other areas where it's good to invite is on after positive net promoter score can be a really great opportunity to invite through your chatbot. If you're leveraging us within Sense, we also have customers that use us inside of Staffing Engine and their chatbot as well. Yeah. And then I think probably one of the most impactful, which you heard the story earlier, having it in your mobile app that's a huge touch point because of the frequency that people come back to it. And it's also a place where people are used to engaging with referral programs like this in their mobile app experience. If you look at most of the major startups, Airbnb, Uber, Lyft, they all had a refer a friend button in there where you could go and refer people directly. And this is kind of modeled off of that. So I think there's a familiarity with it at that touch point as well.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to just kind of close this out. I've got a couple last slides. We did do a survey to Dan's ambassador network just to kind of get some feedback on what they think of the referral program. And we'll keep these slides pretty quick. But in terms of just some key takeaways, when we asked people what they think of the referral program, they said it's always easy and the bonuses come in handy. One thing I think is worth noting here is this extra money for helping a friend find a job. So many people come to us with, hey, it's all about the money, it's all about the bonus. And the reality is, after a certain threshold, the money is not as important as your reputation and the experience that people have with your brand. People only refer people to things where they think their friend is going to have a good experience. So if you have a terrible reputation, if your net promoter score sucks, you don't need referral software in that instance. If you have a good net promoter score, this is a good spot for you. But the real reason for referring is typically because I'm helping a friend out. We asked people how they feel about the program from a data standpoint. This lines up with other surveys we've done, but it's easy to understand. The link is easy to share. And then people appreciate being able to see the status of their referrals. And the last part I'll close this out with, because I think it's actually relatively important for agencies to think about. A lot of agencies we talk to are like, oh, we have a referral program. We have this form on our website. So we've started in all of our ambassador surveys asking, how do you want to share the referral program with your friends? And the absolute last, consistently, this is, I think we've done 12 of these surveys now. And every single time, the form is the last way that people want to share the referral program. They want to text it, they want to email it, they want to use social media, or they want to grab their link and share it separately. So something to think about when you think about the actual method in which people want to refer friends. And this is also why, if you go to in the app, if you click on refer a friend, the first thing that's going to pop up is a button that allows you to text it out directly to your friends. So with that, we'll wrap it up and ask for any final questions.
David, while we're waiting for those questions, I'll just going back to my experience this morning, right? I was really trying to help my friend out, right? She lost a job, she's got a family, big deal. And I didn't really know where to go and what to do. And I certainly have no, desire to make any money off of her and all of that. But what was so easy to just go in on LinkedIn and say, refer a friend. And I knew the company, like I had it done within 60 seconds and I felt good about it, that I was able to at least put her name out there to a company that's very reputable. And you know what I mean? So it just made it super easy to do that, above and beyond the idea that, hey, you might get a couple of bucks if something happens. Like that's not the intention.
Absolutely.
Simplicity.
Yep. It's funny though. We had one customer who I do not remember when it was like maybe 3 years ago. So they said they went from $100 referral bonus up to $2,000 per placement. They were not light industrial, they were IT, but they wanted to test it. Yeah, but they wanted to test and see what would actually happen if they changed their referral bonuses. And they said that after $200, from $200 to $2,000, the placement stayed the same, but the amount of junk they had to wade through to get to it changed. And so the actual monetary amount had not the correlation you would expect with placements. And I say all of that with the fact that there is a threshold in light industrial. We've seen that threshold is you need to give $100. If you're giving under $100 as your referral bonus, it's going to have trouble. And we've seen that consistently. In other verticals, it changes, it's a little bit higher, but it is something that there's a kind of like get to the minimum threshold. Anything after that isn't going to have necessarily the impact you think it's going to have. So.
Yep.
Awesome. I don't see any questions that have come through at the moment. I think we kind of answered them throughout the presentation, but thank you guys all so much for joining today. Again, there will be a recording of this that we'll send out. Dan, Joda, Rachel, really appreciate you guys and enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I really appreciate
Thank
you guys.
y'all.
You have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay.